All right. Well, thank you all for tuning in. I'm here with my great friend Marcus here to kind of hear about his career. So, Marcus, could you just like let us know what your, full name is, your title, and kind of where you're from? Just introduce who you are for us.
Yeah, my name is Marcus Hwang. I'm, and there's like many letters behind my name, and I guess I have to say it. There's DDS, which is dental, what is it? Doctor of Dental Surgery. And there's MD, which is the medical degree. So I'm a dual trained dentist and a physician.
Wow. So you are both a dentist and a doctor, and you're kind of using both of those to be an oral surgeon, right? Is that correct?
Yeah, and like the thing about our field, oral surgery, also called oral and maxillofacial surgery, as I like flaunt the title on my scrub. I didn't plan for this, but I think I did. Yeah, it's like a combination of dentistry and medicine in that uh you work in the mouth and you're trained to think like a dentist. You're very technical focused. And then you further your training by going to medical school and doing all these surgery rotations and becoming an actual surgeon. Um, and then you then expand from the mouth to more the head and neck area, which is kind of what my field really focuses on now.
That's awesome. And when you kind of think about how to kind of get there to where you are, and I believe it's right now residency, which is once you graduate at school and you're actually kind of doing the surgery and whatnot. What's kind of the education that you had to go through in order to kind of get there? Like, I kind of know already, but the audience doesn't, and they'd love to hear like what it takes to get to where you are.
Yeah, and man, like I can't believe I'm giving this talk to or this being interviewed for an audience of middle and high school students because and you're gonna hear many people say this, but it really feels like yesterday when I was sitting in, I guess, your guys' shoes, looking at some random pretentious, doctor giving inspiration and all these like passion-filled quotes and their story of struggle and success and you can do it if I can do it kind of things. Um, Man, like time flies, but I went to middle school, high school like you guys did, and then I went to college for 4 years. I got a bachelor's of science, which is completely uh, not the most useful thing, but a prerequisite to enter now into healthcare. I went to dental school at University of Washington, which is another 4 year program. I then became an old man, and I got accepted into a 6 year residency, which included medical school training and my surgical residency. So after high school, and I hope this isn't deterring my audience, but after high school, what is that? 10 years of training. And I'm considering an extra year after graduation.
Definitely a long time. And, when you think about delayed gratification, I think your path really exemplifies that. And to folks out there kind of thinking about healthcare careers, you don't need to go to college to be part of healthcare. But when you're trying to go into this path of oral surgery, for sure, you do need a bachelor's and kind of medical and dental school too. So, Marcus, I'm curious, like when you decided to want to be an oral surgeon, like was there like a defining moment for you, or was there like a culmination of moments that kind of came to that?
I'm going to be honest to you, Joe, and also to my audience, because I think there's a lot of false information and misguidance, I think. And I mean, we have to really give people like solid advice, but there was no defining moment for me. And I think that's the true, honest answer that at least I've come to. Um, the passion and interest for oral surgery or head and neck surgery, what have you, it developed over time through like a barrage of random intermittent experiences that I just ran into by luck or chance or by the gratitude or I guess the generosity of others, right? Like my mentors, who may or may not have saw things in me would give me experiences that would then further my interest in some things. Like I mean, people don't know this, but my interest in dentistry never really, like, there was no defining moment, but I always knew I liked working with my hands. Like, I mean, I don't know if you know this, Joe, but like in high school, when I was in the audience's shoes, I didn't study, and all I did during like winter break and after school was I worked on cars, and I used to be a very bad drifter, but one nonetheless that got in trouble a lot by the parents, but also like legal authorities. And I always knew I loved working with my hands. I liked playing with Legos as a kid. Um, I hated like I don't know, I hated typing and like doing all these computer stuff, and so I just found myself constantly working with my hands, got an interest in dentistry after my own experiences in dental care. And through that, I don't know, I just got exposed to surgical procedures. Yeah, I mean, and I think that's one thing for people to know who are interested in healthcare careers is that it's not about a defining moment. It's not about a sexy experience that you get in Guatemala or the Honduras where you're like, oh my gosh, Paul Farmer is awesome and I want to be a healthcare person. And that's great to have these experiences. But I think it's more about allowing yourself to have experiences of any kind, whether you have to force it to yourself or not, because you never know what you really want inside, especially in the span of decades.
Right. And it sounds like it's not something you can just kind of be intentional. I mean, you can be intentional, but you can't force it. And there's a lot of spontaneity and luck that's might be involved there. And it sounds like in order to be an oral surgeon, you have to be good with Legos, be a good drifter, and
Never said I
that's
was
kind of
good, Joe.
that's kind of the message.
Yeah.
Well, it's cool though to hear that like you don't have to be. I mean, you do have to study, but that's not where you kind of maybe started off as. And but now that you are an oral surgeon, I'm curious like what that day to day is. Like, is it a lot of, surgery or, do you do other things? Like, what can you tell us like what you see, think, and do?
Yeah, it's hard to explain my day if you haven't been in it. Even my wife, who is in healthcare, she's a dentist. Um, she has a hard time understanding what I do day to day at the hospital, what rounding means, what inpatient means, running the floor, and all these words that I don't think is important to the audience here. But my day is I wake up at 5, I cry and groan about waking up at 5, and at 5:05 I get out of bed and it's ready to start the day. Get to the hospital, I round on patients. So basically in the morning you go to the hospital, see patients that are uh, basically staying there for their care. You go check on them in the morning, develop a plan for for that day. And then you go to the operating room, do a bunch of surgery. Some last 2 hours, some last 4, some last 13. And I've been in cases that are 18 hours. I would be in a operating room from 7:30 until like 2 a.m. sometimes, and that really takes a toll. Um, then you have clinic, the dreaded clinic that everyone doesn't like to go to, especially residents. Clinic is like 40 to 50 patients. It's a it's a wildfire. You're just like seeing patients every 5 minutes, trying to develop a plan, trying to be nice to everyone, trying to be thorough, which is I think the most demanding and tiring part of residency, where because when you're operating on a patient, most of the time they're asleep, and so you don't have this social dynamic. You don't have this social aspect you have to really think about and really do, because it doesn't come naturally for me, Joe. Like, as you know, I have a terrible personality. But
I wouldn't
in
say
like
that.
clinic, you have to be thoughtful of, oh, you have cancer, and just because you're in a rush, you can't be blunt. You can't cut them off from their story, because a lot of these patients are coming to you in fear of the unknown, and you're the only person that they know that can give them some answers. And I think um, that aspect of my day is the most psychologically demanding part. And then the final aspect of residency, which is the tough part, that really you can't predict much, is the call schedule. So you go home, let's say at 10 p.m. or 8 p.m. or 6 p.m. on a lucky day, and you're on call that night. and patients will go to the ED from whenever, and you get called in, you go see the patient. Sometimes you take them directly to the operating room, and you might be up until 3 a.m., 4 a.m., and then right at 5, you're back rounding again. So you might go full 4 days, like 2, 3 days without sleep sometimes.
What kind of stood out from what you just talked about there is that even though the procedures can take a while and might take a majority of your like actual physical time, it's the interaction with those patients that is very mentally demanding because you're always having to be attentive to their needs and emotional needs as well. Um, and I think you also kind of touched there about like the challenges of being an oral surgeon, which is that you don't get to sleep all often, and it's physically demanding. But there must be something though, despite those physical challenges of like having to stay up and everything, that makes it worthwhile. And what is it that you find it to be fun? Like maybe you could take us to like a surgical case that you were doing, you're like, oh, this is why I love oral surgery, or is it, or maybe you hate your job the whole time.
Man, that's like something about my day that makes it worthwhile. I mean, there's so many things, but um, hmm. I was an underdog growing up, and we'll get into that. I lived a very unfortunate kind of background. Oral surgery, in some ways, is also a underdog profession. We started off as a pure dental specialty that then, kind of found our way into the operating room. And back in the day when that wasn't like a norm, plastic surgeons and otolaryngology surgeons were very against the idea. And we then, obtained our MDs and found our way anyway. Like we're normalized specialty now in medicine, and in surgical fields worldwide. And I think there's like some pride of being like the underdog. I think just kind of is deeply rooted in me that like I like being the underdog and kind of proving people wrong, or being challenged to be better. And so I think one of the best things about being in oral surgery is I love when people say, or people in the hospital, other medical specialties always say, you oral surgeons are something else. You guys work the hardest. You guys come to the ED the fastest. Like those words, maybe they say it to everyone just to like rub your shoulders, but those words are just like really motivating to know that my department or my specialty uh, has been and is still a very hardworking group of surgeons. I think something else that I really enjoy about being a surgeon or an oral surgeon is, again, I like working with my hands. I like, and I hate saying this, I like, I guess, tearing, or rather, opening people up surgically or exposing their anatomy and then putting it back in the most meticulous way so that they look most like what they were before surgery. And that is like the biggest challenge of any surgical specialty, to make Joe Tono look like Joe Tono. That beautiful, handsome face is hard to recreate if I were to open it up. Um, and I think I get so much joy in seeing a patient go through such a big surgery where we're cutting out big tumors from their jaw, or um, cancerous nodes from their neck, or taking their leg for, reconstruction. When I can see them have a near normal life again, or a near normal appearance, it makes me very proud of what I did. And I think that's a very selfish thing. It's a very selfish thing that I have, and I'll admit it. Enjoy being good at what I do, or I enjoy making things look cosmetic or pretty or whatever. Yeah, I mean, those are the two major things, I think, Joe.
That's
Mhm.
awesome. That's awesome. I mean, I think there is definitely a lot of, respect for oral surgery, not only because of the meticulousness that you were kind of referring to, but also the fact that you guys work tremendously hard. And so I think kind of being able to be in that, special group of individuals that are doing that, I think is really something. And talking about handsome faces and aesthetics, I think you've beaten me on that one, pal. But
I'll
we
admit
will.
that. I'll admit that, Joe. I mean, let's be honest here.
Um, so that's cool. It's that you get to really look at someone's anatomy, and then you have the ability to put things together. And I think today, we were talking about maybe showing pictures and stuff, but let's hold off on that because it can be a little bit gruesome. But I'm sure there's ways to find that out on a Google search or something. So kind of pivoting here now, talking not about the profession, but maybe a little bit more about you here. It's we're both Asian Americans, and we live here, and I'm curious about kind of how you've navigated any discrimination that might have happened throughout your career as an oral surgeon or dentist or otherwise. Um, and if so, any advice for folks that might be in that same criteria, I guess.
The discrimination that I faced as an oral surgeon by being Asian American.
Could be either Asian or and it doesn't have to be Asian. So, just for some context, the folks that we're really trying to reach out to are students that might not have all the resources like money to go into some healthcare careers, or folks that English is their first language, or folks that are either Black or Indigenous or people of color. And so if you kind of feel that you fit into any of those criteria and you found those to be barriers that you've had to overcome, like any thoughts there would be helpful.
Yeah, and um, again, I'm pretty honest about the way I like tell my story. Um, and this your mileage may vary depending on the audience here and what you've gone through. And I hope to one day hear your stories and also see you develop a very beautiful kind of narrative as you go along. Um, let's start with the Asian American thing. I think being Asian American, it has affected me, but not in ways that I can really articulate or really put my finger on. It did affect me, and I can remember instances where it did, but I don't think that was the major challenge I had. Me growing up in Seattle, Washington, or even Linwood, Washington, or even Pacific Northwest. I don't know where the audience is from. We have a pretty robust Asian community here. Maybe not so much when I was younger, but as I grew older, the Asian community was pretty big, and there were successful, Asian um people. And so I don't think that ever like deterred me or it made me wonder like, oh, can a Korean make it? Or can a uh, Taiwanese dude make it or something? I never really doubted that. Honestly, you see a lot of Asian people in those in those careers, but um I didn't have a tiger mom. Uh the the crutch that I had, the handicap that I had to deal with in my life and still do, is I grew up in I grew up with a very challenged financial situation, humbling situation. My parents immigrated here, wanting to give us a better life. According to my mom, they came here with like $200 or something in their backpack, and
Wow.
we came here. It's me and my two sisters, so two parents and three kids. Both of my parents were high school graduates. They went to a little bit of college and dropped out. Back in the day in Korea, college was very expensive, and it wasn't available to everyone. And so they were working class people, blue collar, working class. My dad was a construction worker in Korea. My mom was a stay-home mom, which was, still doable back in the day. And then we immigrated here, and my dad and my mom, I mean, long story short, they worked, I mean, three jobs for a while, each of them. So they would both work three jobs. And what was, um, challenging was, or I guess, they worked three jobs to make us feel like we're normal, like that we had enough financial stability to to not be bothered by it. but they failed. I mean, it's hard. They couldn't make ends meet. We had to move like 10 or 9 times during my junior high years. So I guess the audience's years. And that was very hard on me. And at that point, it was hard to hide the fact that, oh, I'm poor. Oh my God, I'm the underdog. I'm the population of people that historically don't make it. And that I didn't think about it too much when I was in middle school, and I don't think any of the audience members do think about that as much. But subconsciously affected me a lot. It made me rebel. I became a bad student. I didn't study, didn't do tests. But luckily, I had this like false sense of confidence that I was smart, just because my sister always like, tutored me at home. Um, but anyway, that was hard for me to deal with because, you would see all your friends doing football or soccer or taking what is it called, driver's ed or whatever,
Right,
driver's ed
driver's ed.
lessons.
Mm-hmm.
And you would always be in comparison, like, oh, they're all doing these amazing experiences. They're going to Italy, they're going to China for family gatherings. They're going to Banff for whatever. And I never had those experiences. So always in my life, I was like, holy crap, I'm left behind. I don't have as much opportunity. But what was fortunate for me was, despite the financial lacking, my parents instilled a very nice sense of love, an abundance of love at home, where they at least made me believe, have this like illusion that I could do anything that I wanted.
Hmm.
And I think that doesn't come from like the sense of wealth. I think the support you get from your community um is big. Like, I got a lot of love from my parents. They let me freely do whatever I wanted. My mom wanted me to be a pastor, but when I told her, like, F no, like, she kind of gave up.
Sure.
And my church was very, very supportive and put me in leadership roles where I got to you know to exercise some of those um exercise those positions of kind of leadership. And so, eventually that developed like the sense of like hard work in me, the sense of like experience, journey, seeking out things on my own. Hence why I call myself like the underdog. And I guess I eventually found my way into this field. Yeah.
Wow. Well, thanks for sharing that. And I know that there are folks kind of out there that um, might be in a similar situation that you once found yourself in, where they might feel that they're being left behind. They might be feeling that they're the underdog, and they don't know how to kind of, motivate or what steps to take to either pursue, the path of oral surgery or pursue a path in healthcare. And did you have any kind of wisdom that you'd like to impart to them from what you've experienced so far?
Yeah, man. Like, when you're talking about this stuff, the first thing I could really think about was what's his name? Mayer. John Mayer,
John
right?
John Mayer. Okay.
Yeah, he's the musician. He sings that song like "Waiting for the World to Change."
Sure.
I was in choir back in high school. It looks like
Uh-huh.
I'm a terrible singer. I don't look like a choir person, but I was in choir and we sang that song, and I was like very like passionate. I love that song. I was like, oh, the world's gonna change. I'm gonna
Yeah,
make it into healthcare. It's gonna be
sure.
fair for me someday.
Hmm.
That's bullshit. You know, and the world will change, and the world's getting better, and as it will get better,
Hmm.
but not in your time. And I
Mm.
really want to impart that perspective for the audience. From the span of now 10, 15 years being in high school, middle school to now, the world has changed for the better, but not really for my situation.
Mm.
Uh, Again, Asian American, I didn't really feel anything being an Asian American, but poor, being poor 15 years ago versus being poor now, you're still going to have a hard chance of kind of what we call making it into some of these
Mm.
careers. whether
Sure.
that's in the various aspects of healthcare. They've developed different careers in the healthcare setting to allow for more disadvantaged people to make it.
Hmm.
Um, but nevertheless, it's still hard for you to have experiences, extracurricular experiences to help develop that interest, like I talked about earlier. Um, the one thing I really want the audience to hopefully think about and ponder about, and you know, I give advice freely and take it as you leave it. I don't care. You know, I wish to be a tool for the audience to use. No one is going to help you unless you seek it, unless you ask for it. And what I mean by that is you have to put in the effort. No one's going to hand anything to you. And I wish that wasn't true. But in the past 15 years, no one ever reached out with their hand and said, "Let me show you the way." It was only because they saw something in me or because I expressed something that they found some place in their heart to give me a dollar or advice or mentorship long term. And that's not going to change for you. You're going to make it into college. Congrats. You're going to cry when you get your diploma, but it's the same thing for you again. During college, you'll be comparing yourself to Joe Tono, who went to Japan multiple times, and I didn't get to go to Korea. You know, you're gonna have a lot of friends in college where you meet wealthy people, poor people, middle class, and you'll have such a different experience of college. Like I thought college was supposed to be this like academic setting full of very cool experiences and travel and a lot of drinking, but um, I couldn't. You know, I was working during college and all these things, and to make it dental school, and it doesn't end at dental school too. Now you're comparing yourself with the cream of the crop. Like all these people are from dental families, medical families, um, and so the thing I hope the audience remembers is you have to work hard as a habit, not as a motivation. This video, I'm glad it may motivate some of you, but motivation will last an hour. And I've lived that. I've lived that motivation is ever so fleeting. It doesn't last. You can watch this video 20 times, but my words will just slip on by. And once you have to make hard work, sacrifice, this like pursuit of experience and betterment of yourself to be it has to be a part of you. It has to be a discipline that you practice every day.
Wow. I don't know if I have any comments to that, but I think just making working hard a habit and not just a fleeting thing is so true. And then your thought about kind of making sure that you're proactive and seeking the help that you want is really profound. And I think we're kind of reaching the end here, Marcus. And um, I think just to kind of recap here, if you want to go into oral surgery, going into college and getting a bachelor's, then going into dental school, and then from there going into medical school, that's kind of the path. So it's long. Um, but would you have any final advice or words you'd like to kind of say to any potential high school students or middle school interested in healthcare or oral surgery?
Yeah, I mean, like, you know, just go ask someone, like, go ask to shadow. The worst that can happen is no, right? And that's like something that people have always said to me when I was timid about stuff. I was a shy character growing up. But like the worst someone can say is no. Just go ask. And if they say no, well, screw them. Go ask a different person. And if all the oral surgeons in your community say no, then screw oral surgery. Go do something else, you know? Like,
Sure.
um, go seek it out. And that doesn't mean you go once to shadow their office, right? Because some of that's boring. Like some of that's really boring. There'll be many times in your life where you will be the fly on the wall. And don't take it personally. It is just the nature of the surgical job that they have to be focused on these things, and they're allowing you to enter their realm for a bit to just shadow, and that's what that means, is to just shadow and watch, observe, ponder questions. um yeah, I mean, the advice I would give is, go shadow a ton of people, and that doesn't mean just oral surgeon. Go shadow dentists, go shadow other doctors, go shadow PAs, nurses, um because that just builds you into a more well-rounded person. Like right now, as a resident, I'm a surgery resident. We have uh, uh what is it, like um, a stereotype of being assholes in the hospital and just being blunt to people, and I am. But I spend a lot of time talking to nurses, PAs, patient care
Mm,
coordinators, because I want to understand what of their job is so hard, because then it helps me empathize, or I guess have sympathy for what they go through. So next time that something happens, I don't just get upset or be blunt with them. It's you understand, like, the whole field, like the whole system of healthcare. Um, second thing, I think, the middle school and high school students are, you guys are born in this world of like abundant information. Like, you have this video, you have YouTube videos, you have Wikipedia, you have Google, you have all these, like, you know, um, what would you say, like these evangelists of ideas on YouTube, and they'll tell you to do this or that.
influencers.
Yeah, like influencers, right? And you guys are gonna all look at me as like some old dude just telling you nonsense, but ignore the noise. A lot of people are saying the same advice. Take good ones and just move on, and stop watching the video, and just go do. I think the no matter what, and if you don't do something, you're not gonna get results. And I think the world still operates on results. I don't care about your passions and your motivations, because your results show it. Your outcome shows it. I think I could be the best surgeon in the world and I could talk about it for hours, but if I never operate, am I a surgeon? I mean, um, so, go do stuff. Um, the Nike quote is always nice. Just do it. It's always good. There's a lot of books that I would, have readers read. I mean, I don't know if books are still existent for you guys anymore. I don't know if that's a relic of the past now, but I read a ton during middle school and high school, um, just because I had no other mentors nearby to give me advice. And I think I found a lot of solitude and um, revelation in books.
Well, thanks a lot, Marcus, for kind of sharing there. Just do it. Read a lot of books. Be proactive. Really, really great. So, thanks again. Hopefully, you all find something of usefulness from this conversation, and yeah, uh, take action. Thanks, Marcus.
Yeah, thanks, man.